You guys feeling good after No Kings this weekend? First off, I want to start and say I'm so proud of all of you. I remember the first time that I became an organizer was in 2018, after Trump got elected the first time, and it was the midterm election, and we were all scared out of our pants. And I was a DACA recipient at the time. I was actually undocumented, and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And it was whenever I was at the University of Oklahoma organizing with other young students that I realized that the only way that we can win is if we share our stories, build our communities, and get this man out of office, right? In that same year, I actually, my very first organizing opportunity, I actually worked on Kendra Horn's campaign back in 2018, and that set me off. I wasn't just someone who was like, okay, I'm just gonna come here and knock a couple of days. I got the organizing bug, I got caught up in it, and I decided I was gonna keep going, and lo and behold, this ended up turning into a career choice, as to my dismay of my parents. From there, I actually ended up getting involved in campaigns, working at the Oklahoma State Legislature, doing a lot of anti-death penalty advocacy work, if you all remember Julius Jones. And then from there, ending up working over at Oklahoma Policy Institute, based right here in Tulsa, focusing on strengthening democracy issues, focusing on criminal justice reform, the things that affect everyday Oklahomans, right? One thing that I always tell people is, especially growing up here in Oklahoma, is I don't believe it's a red state. My experience is a little bit different. I grew up around lots of different kinds of people all over the state of Oklahoma, and a lot of progressive people. We do exist. Clearly look at yourselves, look at this room. It just sometimes takes a dictator to get us all out there, right? And be able to find each other. Before I was at Indivisible National, I was actually at the Oklahoma Center for Community and Justice Space here in Tulsa, for OCCJ, and I found myself coming up here almost every single week, attending the MPAC over at the City Council and Mayor's office, and spent a lot of time organizing both in Tulsa and Oklahoma City and throughout, realizing that we have a lot more in common than we do different, that these issues are impacting all of us, and when we truly have each other, when we are here to stand up for each other, we can win, right? We know that we can win. It just takes a little bit of breaking that apathy, right? The most dangerous thing that you can have is belief, and belief can truly change something from happening. And if they kill your belief, then you've lost, right? That's really what it comes down to. So just a little bit, I just completed 120 days at Indivisible National. I covered 10 states, it's just kind of ridiculous. Originally, they had put Oklahoma under what they call the small states program. I was like, are you kidding me? Oklahoma's a lot, it's huge. When we talk about those 10 states, I'm covering Oklahoma all the way up to the Dakotas. So all those states that are between Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, Iowa, Arkansas, Louisiana, Missouri, and Kentucky, which that's a lot, right? We are at 85 staff members at the national level, and we're still feeling like we could always use more help. And luckily, as you know, the elections are right around the corner, which means we are staffing up right now. So if you or anybody you know wants to come work for us, we're hiring. And also, this is probably the best time to be a member of Indivisible. If you who here was at No Kings 1? Okay, almost everybody here. Okay, for those of you who are at No Kings 2, if that was your first protest, raise your hand. Give a round of applause for our first round protesters. The idea of coming out to a protest, especially if you have never protested before, can be terrifying. I know, because my parents, they always told me, Tasneem, you're not going to a protest. That is not why we came to this country. We literally left so that we didn't have to. But the reality is we have to fight for what we have, right? This No Kings, we had over 7 million people across the United States. We're having a national call tonight. We have, I think, close to around 135,000 people registered for tonight's call, which is, to me, insane. But it's because people like you are meeting every single night, wanting to organize and do things. We're actually right now parsing through all of our source code and trying to figure out how many people registered through all of our Mobilize and Indivisible links, and we're gonna have a hard number here soon. And then somebody decided to say that No Kings 3 is happening. I did not say that, let me be very clear about that. Which I'm like, for those of us who were organizers on national, the second that we heard somebody mention No Kings 3, all of us held our breath for just a moment. But we have not just folks here in the United States, but folks in France, and folks in Japan, and folks in Italy, and folks in Germany. The whole world is watching what we're doing here in the United States. And so it is up to all of us to make sure we get this man out of office and make sure that people like him can ever be in office ever again. So since No Kings 1, we had 2,500 chapters join us, which is great, but we had to go through the spreadsheets and every single approval and getting everybody on board. So for those of you who either reached out to me or reached out to me at National, I apologize. It was a huge backlog, but it's a good problem to have, and that's why we're bringing on more people, right? Now, the other thing that I want to say is that for those of us who are chapter leaders or group leaders, we are going to be kind of moving into what we call a three-part process, right? And the Susans have heard me talk about this on our statewide steering calls and everything like that. But you've already done your part, which is be part of the chapter, right? Now it's time for us to make sure that all of our indivisibles are working with each other, that we're getting our states on the same pages, but also recognizing that there are several other groups who are also organizing, right? No Kings was not just Indivisible. For everybody who thinks that No Kings is an Indivisible event, you're wrong. It is hundreds of organizations that have come across. We're looking at NAACPs, we're looking at ACLUs, we're looking at Interfaith Alliances. Several entities across the United States all came together and said, we have to do this, right? With our ultimate goal, not just of doing these one-day protests, but how can we do continuous mass strategic non-cooperation, right? Lots of big words coming here. But the idea is, how can we do this disruption over a long period of time? You may hear some people in the union world talk about mass strikes and what are those sort of things. If you've been seeing what's happening in Italy, you have these organizations, you have these workers who shut down the entire country. It's kind of nuts. And to think that how can we do this in the United States? It's been done before. It actually happened more recently than you think in 2006. But it's been done before, and that is the goal. How can we cause mass strategic non-cooperation, right? When we look at these other nations, if you pay attention to international news, if you see what's happening in Madagascar or Morocco or Indonesia or Nepal, right? You are seeing working people across the world say, no, we are not going to stand for inhumane and unjust policies. We are not going to stand for these politicians who continue to benefit themselves at the cost of everyday human beings. And so that kind of energy is making its way here to the United States with all of you. I'm going to give a very short lesson. If you look at Brazil, for example, before they had a dictator, his name was Bolsonaro, right? You look at when Donald Trump was elected, 2 years later, you see somebody like him get elected. We had our own January 6th, they had their own version. And we actually had our managing director, Mary Small, go to an international conference, right, where activists from all over the world are speaking to each other and saying, hey, we're paying attention to what you guys are doing. We're seeing what you guys are doing. And we're taking notes and we're taking lessons from you guys, but also look at what we're doing and see how we're gonna be able to make a change around the world. These tariffs have devastated the whole world, right? And I'll talk a little bit more later about healthcare and what these, and the shutdown and things like that. We're gonna get there. But for us, the goal here is we build, of course, coalitions amongst Indivisible. We build coalitions amongst these other groups who are also organizing with us, like LULAC and the ACLU. And then of course, ideally, we want to build a movement at the end of the day, right? Yes, Donald Trump won in 2020, but what are we gonna do to make sure stuff like that never happens again, right? In 2024, thank you. If Biden won in 2024. I organized the 2020 election cycle, and goodness gracious, I never want to do that ever again. I still don't want to do that ever.
None of us are over it.
We're not, no. As you see, I got the pandemic fatigue still. So no kings, right? Several hundred entities, ACLU, Interfaith Alliance, 5051, Public Citizens, Stand Together, Faithful America, right? All coming together and saying, hey, we got this, right? The progressive movement was built on coalitions and recognizing that, sure, we had a lot to do since 2024, right? Some of our coalition kind of fractured and fell apart. Right now is the time to rebuild, okay? We're going into these midterm elections, and it's really important for us to rebuild those coalitions. So now, I'm talking a little bit about the national attention, right? So Indivisible National, we are now pivoting to talk about what's going on right now, the federal government shutdown. I don't know if you heard, but today they made some news saying that SNAP benefits are going to be running out on October 31st.
They're not putting them out on November.
They're not going to put them out in November.
They're suspending them, and if you have anything on, if you have a balance on your card like I do, they say it usually carries over each month. They're saying it might not, they might zero your card out at the end of the month if you don't spend it.
The president is holding all of us hostage.
Yeah.
We already know, especially in Oklahoma, we've already had rural hospitals shut down. We already know that a fourth of this state's population is on Medicaid. I was just in Louisiana in August, and I was visiting with both farmers and a lot of patients, and they were saying that these hospitals are gearing up to do austerity measures. They are cutting now because they know that same revenue is not coming later, right? And so what he wants us to do is tighten our belts, which is not practical, it's not possible. We are even seeing, these National Guard members who are being deployed to all these cities. Their families are lining up at food banks because they don't have the resources or the money to take care of themselves. And so our attention has to now focus on the government shutdown. And there is specific emphasis coming from national that they are putting on red states, that they are putting on districts that have Republican elected officials, especially here in Oklahoma, where we have the highest number of nonprofits per capita than any other state in the United States, which is specifically to say that the government is not doing their job when it comes to social services, right? So it's time to put pressure on those federal elected officials. It's time to put pressure on Senator James Langford and Markwayne Mullin especially, because it's the Senate that's holding up this problem, right? We know the House gavelled back in today, and the reason they keep delaying, technically it's October 21st, the House was supposed to come back today. But he continues to delay this because they don't want the Epstein files to be released, right? But it's time to put pressure on Congress. It's time to put pressure on these Republican elected officials on the federal level and say, are you going to let your constituents die? That is it. That is how raw it is. I mean, and of course, if they say yes, at least you got that on camera so we can put that all over the national media. But the idea here is to now put pressure on them. Yes?
Why can we not, as the people, press charges or something to the effect to the United States government because they have literally been covering up a crime for 20 years? I've looked it up, I've researched it before I came. Yes. And I called the FBI, do whatever. And I was just like, but they've been covering up a crime for 20 years. Like, if it was any one of us, it would already be done. It would be done. And why can't we?
I think, and I can't speak for Indivisible.
Yeah.
So I can't speak for Indivisible National, but the idea here is that From what I understand from like the congressional level is they're prohibiting this Arizona elected official from getting sworn in because if she comes in, they have the votes to be able to release all of these files. Private entities can definitely sue the federal government. They already are. There are plenty of national groups. It's a great question that I wish I had the answer to. But you make a very good point. Why is it not that our legal groups are not already trying to sue the federal government on trying to release what is duly for the American people, right? Grab my contact after this because I would definitely love to talk more about this for sure. So again, the big focus here is now putting pressure on the shutdown because it's going to be affecting us right now. We have to raise hell and affect them. One thing, and especially for the citizens, is for you guys to know, for any events that are pertaining to shutdown activities or anything, we are doing a reimbursement program up to $200 per event. My goal, and I kind of see this almost like I'm a member of Congress, my goal is to make sure that I can get as much funding and resources down here to the state of Oklahoma, because we have it, right? A couple of those other things. So I talked about those $200 per event regarding Trump shutdowns and how it's impacting our communities. We're also going to be encouraging folks to do things what we call Solidarity in Action. Have anybody heard of the Solidarity in Action program? So Solidarity in Action is something that Indivisible National has released. If there are any local nonprofits, any that focus particularly on youth engagement, on LGBTQ groups, Black or Latino groups, we are encouraging Indivisibles to try and partner with those nonprofits on anything like Know Your Rights, right? Especially for our immigrant communities that are being targeted, food drives, helping folks whenever they're going to USCIS. Anything right now to help with those sort of things, and we can actually help support those events up to $1,000 to $2,500 per those events too. So there is money for those sort of things as well. The other thing that we're working on right now from national, and actually today I met with our Oklahoma City organizer Nina, is that we are going to try and do convenings for our chapters, and especially in these red states, right? We've appropriated from our organizing department about $120,000 to go into helping do these statewide convenings to get folks across the state organized, jive, and almost have these conferences to see how we can strategize with each other and see what we need to do. There's a grant that I'm actually working on right now, especially as we go into the midterm elections and we want to do things like phone banking and helping flip the House. We can get more than I think $8,000 per any of those activities. And so again, my goal is to try and make sure that I can pump as much resources into Oklahoma organizing as much as possible. Last couple of things. So I see one of my campers from OCCJ back there. Good to see you. There is a proposal that's being worked on right now. As you know, Indivisible definitely needs to have some more youth organizing. I know all of y'all are familiar with Turning Point USA. And for us, we recognize that especially as these high schools and college campuses are starting their own clubs, and there's been a resurgence. I don't know if any of y'all saw what happened at OU at the Lloyd Noble Center with TPUSA, but Indivisible is also working to push back on that as well. We already have chapters that have been established at Vanderbilt, University of Alabama, as well as Rutgers, and we're looking to expand that. So if anybody wants to start something at University of Tulsa, for example, or TCC, call me. I will help you do that. We even have high schools that are starting chapters as well. We have 7 high schools currently right now starting these programs. And the more that we have, again, the more resources I can pack into Oklahoma organizing. Question?
Did you know they're looking to ask her to be the new president of TU?
No, I did not know that. That being said, it's a great way for campus organizers to push back. Right? So we want to organize on these college campuses. We want to get young people angry, right? One thing that we noticed with No Kings 2 than in comparison with No Kings 1 is that we saw a lot more younger people coming out. right? And the thing is we really need Indivisible to become a multi-generational space. We need each other, right? And that's the only way that we're gonna win, is if we get each other. Young professionals, that also being said, we announced what we call our Courage Collaboratives, right? So if any of you have heard of the different pillars of strategic non-cooperation, right? We have faith-based institutions as one of those pillars. We have workers' associations and labor unions. We have education groups. I mentioned these schools, universities, right? Talk about professional associations. One other project I'm working on is getting lawyers and bar associations to also push back, do some of these lawsuits against the Trump administration, right? We saw a lot of these big corporate firms roll over and give free services. They need to know that we have their back in case anything happens, right? So basically, again, getting these groups together. We are working with the National Interfaith Alliance, Faithful America, Interfaith America, Faith in Action, several groups to come together to make sure that we are organizing our clergy, right? And getting them to push back. You have these hyper-conservative churches endorsing from the pulpit, right? Because the IRS has now allowed these 501c3 faith groups to go to endorse. Now, we're not saying for clergy to go and endorse elected officials, but what we are saying is that it is time for us to get organized and to push back. That is what we're saying. It is time to get organized and push back. So that's what these Courage Collaboratives are going to be focusing on. Last thing, and I know I'm almost done, I promise. I just want to say I'm extremely proud to be an Oklahoman working on the national level with Indivisible. And I say that because there's not enough of us, especially from what is traditionally considered flyover states, to be in the room having these conversations and letting them know that, hey, we exist. The fact is that we can win, we're just underinvested in. And so the more you're able to share these stories with me, the more you're able to tell me how organizing is going right here on the ground, the more I'm able to share that. I have been very happy to announce that our National Organizing Director, Shay, just appointed me to work on DEI issues with her as well. I mean, I'm sure you are all familiar that our governor signed an executive order last year saying we're gonna push back on that. But the reality is that when we are in proximity to even our national leaders and they hear what's happening, they throw money and they throw resources and they throw more workers down this way. I don't want to be the only Oklahoman on the national stage working on this, right? And of course I'm not alone, I have all of you. That being said, again, we are part of a community, right? Indivisible isn't just like a political party group. It's not just a club. This is a community that we are a part of. And we take care of each other when we are in a community, right? You know, Trump is not the end all, right? He's a symptom of the problem. And what I want to see is that in 2026, we take back the House, we take back the Senate. In 2028, we take back the White House, right? We take back the White House. And in 2032, we keep the White House, and we pass all of these amazing policies so that we never have to do this again, right? And when I said never have to do this, I mean fight Donald Trump. I would like to continue seeing all of you regularly. Is it okay if I take
10 minutes?
10 minutes, okay. I will take time for any questions, and if I don't have an answer, I will write them down and get back through Susan. I saw your hand first.
So, I'm frustrated because when Democrats took the White House and everything in 2020, we were so concerned about, oh, we can't break the rules, and they didn't put anything in place to actually stop this. You know, Merrick Garland, nice man, apparently have the presumption to actually put Trump on trial. How do we prevent that? Because we're gonna end up right back here again if they don't actually do something. And I'm so aggravated, like that's one of the things that just on a daily basis enrages me.
Absolutely.
So how do we make that change?
So the first is that we don't stop organizing even after we win. I just want to be clear. I worked on a Norman mayoral election after Biden got elected, and a lot of our Democrats decided, okay, we're done. We're staying home. We don't have to do any more work, right? And that has a tendency to happen whenever we get a nationwide blue elected official, we just stop. And that can't happen, right? That is why I'm saying, and I'm reiterating, even after we win, we're not done winning, right? Policy changes. So here's a tangible example. We had 137 chapters in New York all come together and tell Chuck Schumer, you need to step aside because you're continuing to allow Donald Trump to get all these confirmations, right? Now they're holding the line, right? It isn't until we light a fire underneath their asses to say, we are gonna kick you out too, right? That's the benefit of Indivisible is, we are a C3, C4, we are not the Democratic Party, right? We can criticize and critique whoever we want. We've made friends in the party, we've made enemies in the party too, and we've said those things too. But I'll tell you this, there's a reason why Senator Chris Murphy is giving us $100,000, right? It's because everyone sees Indivisible as the organizing force that it is. So it's after they get in, it's holding their feet to the fire and making sure that they do their damn jobs, right? We have a lot of promises. You talked about, these folks are willing to break the rules and do absolutely everything, right? Here's the thing, we actually don't have to break the rules in order to win. We just have to get creative with the rules, right? We are the ones who make the rules. That's the reality. Especially whenever it comes to these Supreme Court judges, right? How do we get creative with the policies around it? After 2020 in Indivisible, we had a lot of groups pop out, right? Wanting to support Kamala Harris, wanting to show up and make phone calls and everything. And then, that was the only time. Between 2020 and 2024, a lot of our Indivisible groups closed up shop and said, we're done. The Facebook groups went completely inactive. That cannot happen. Right? If you want to see student loans get canceled, right? If you want to see Medicaid expanded across the entire United States, if you want to see these progressive policies being done, we are going to have to do that with them, right? We are the fourth branch of government, everyone. It's the people. It's the people. Yes.
The first thing you said was you want us to push back on our Republican representatives, our senators. How?
So, if you guys remember those empty chair town halls, that's a great example of one of those things. We do another one of those, right? Showing up at these elected officials' offices, they won't, that's totally fine. The theatrics also work really well. We've got this woman in Iowa, she dresses up as like this pseudo Miss America type and like embodies like a certain character. Now is the time to get creative, right? Hold on. Now is the time for us to be able to get creative. So for example, I remember, even this is back during the times of when we were organizing for Julia's, we all showed up at the state government and we did sit-ins and everything like that for days and days at a time. I'm not saying that that's immediately where we're gonna go. Just like No Kings, the idea is to continue scaling this right now. I noticed that there was a billboard not too long ago, right? And I'm very proud of you guys for putting on that billboard.
We raised that money.
Yes, you did.
This group.
And the idea here is to now continuously putting them on blast all the time. How can we get more attention, right? Whether it's being in the street, whether that is talking about it in congregation, whether that is showing up and, I don't know, at this point, even doing social media. How can we constantly put these folks on blast? Are we raising money to do a social media campaign, calling out Mark Wayne Mullen? Are we showing up to some of these hospitals and even saying, hey, don't close, right? We have to now collect stories. I got a call from our national campaigns officer, Sarah Dole, and she was asking me, how can we need to find doctors and nurses who are in Mike Johnson's district right now to talk about what are the impacts and effects that are happening in his community, and what is it gonna look like? How do we measure this? That nurse is also a midwife, and she's a Medicaid provider. Pretty much all of her income just comes strictly from Medicaid. So showing that. She also talks about how the tariffs are impacting her, getting things like, some of these medical devices that are manufactured in other nations coming over here are now 50% higher than what they're used to, storytelling is gonna be incredibly crucial for us to be able to get this done. So we need to know how this is impacting you, right? If you can get that to me, blast that in national presser, right? We will get Rutgers, we will get the New York Times, we will get USA Today to talk about these stories. We need to be able to platform all of you in order to get there. What's up?
One more question.
I know this is funny and you guys might laugh, but I have decided to run for Oklahoma governor. I was the same way. I was like, what else can I do? And so I thought about running for a Broken Arrow seat, like where I live, but I feel like things are moving too fast for me to start out at such a low level. And at first I was terrified and scared to death, but honestly I was like, to be a good person and to be for humanity, it can't be that hard. The hard part is the evil part. The hard part is stealing. The hard part is, that's hard. Being a good person, that's for me, that's easy. So anyway, yeah, I'm gonna run. Okay, great.
Yeah, run for office, everyone.
This is not a question, I just wanted to be helpful. I was on the board of the Tulsa Farmers Market. If you don't know the SNAP people that are gonna be affected, if you know anyone, do you know about Double Up Food Bucks? It's doublepUpoklahoma.org. If they spend $20 at a grocery store that is one of those Double Up stores or a farmer's market, they get $20 in free fruits and vegetables. So if you know people that are hungry, this is gonna go on until the SNAP stops.